Hello, class. Welcome to AG482. This is the spring semester of 2021. We're going to spend a real quick amount of time here going through the Blackboard page for this class. Just a quick walkthrough. We got the home page here. I'm sure you all have been familiar a little bit with Blackboard with the last semester, but this is a little bit about me. My name is Dr. Kyle Brazier. You can call me either Kyle or Dr. Brazier, whichever you prefer. If you can't decide, just call me Kyle. I received my bachelor's in horticultural sciences at Michigan State University, and my PhD in crop science at Virginia Tech. And throughout this time, I've been doing a lot of research that's focused on developing new varieties of stevia, petunia, blueberry, strawberry, wheat, barley, some legume crops like fava bean and pea, and most recently some leafy greens in the Salinas Valley. But just a quick thing about me, we've got a cool video about some of the work that we've done here at Chico State. And if you have any questions throughout this class, please don't hesitate to email me personally. We have the email option up here. That's just kgbrazier@csuchico.edu. All right. Next part of the list is the syllabus. We've got this in a docx file and a PDF. I'll try to have these in both files throughout the semester, a docx and a PDF. You can go ahead and click this, check it out. We're going to talk about it later in this video for this week's class. But there you have it. All right, next part we want to go over is the announcements. You'll see these posted every now and again. This is the one that was sent to you January 17th, introducing myself and quick introduction to the class. The classes this semester are going to be held using a hybrid model of asynchronous and synchronous activities. Please be there for the synchronous activities. You'll see those listed on the schedule, and we'll see those dates in the Zoom column here on Blackboard. I'm available for office hours as needed over Zoom. Just send me an email and we can set up a scheduled appointment. One of the other things you'll really need to get on ASAP for this class is purchasing a book. Just one book for this class. This is Agricultural and Food Controversies, What Everyone Needs to Know. The book's pretty cheap. You can get it online as an ebook format for 10 bucks or a paperback for 20. I've seen it on Amazon, other sources, eBay, you name it. You might have a friend that wound up with one from last year. Go ahead and ask them for it. But that's the one thing that you'll really need to get right away for this class. Another thing worth noting is that this class has one really important rule that we're all going to need to abide by, and that's to respect yourself and respect each other. It's pretty simple at the end of the day, at least as written, can be hard to follow through on. This is a pretty broad rule. It connects up academic honesty, COVID issues, and it's going to provide us a really healthy environment to discuss pretty controversial agricultural issues. So to respect yourself and respect each other. If you have any questions about what that means, please don't hesitate to email me. We can go from there. If you have a conflict with a synchronous class, go ahead and email me. If you need a synchronous class for one day, that's fine. Let me know. If it turns into a reoccurring issue, that's probably not being respectful of each other, right? So that goes against that rule. So going forward, take care of yourself. Let's get through this class. It's going to be a fun semester, even though it's virtual. And I look forward to a good semester with you all. Other tab here is the class content. You'll see it's broken down by week. These weeks align with the weeks in the syllabus. You can just click that folder. You'll see that this folder should be viewable by January 25th. This week we're going to talk about our introduction to the class, go through some ag awareness and perceptions presentations, and we have a few writing assignments to work on. So you'll see some of these later on in this particular video for day one. You get your grades column. Zoom's a big one. Go to the Zoom tab, click the Zoom meetings, and for those synchronous classes, you can just join them right from this page. Easy enough. All right, that's all I got. Hey class, let's go over the agricultural issues syllabus now. Again, my name is Dr. Kyle Frazier. You won't find me in 381 Holt Hall with the COVID situation being as it is, but please reach out to me via email. We can set up office hours as needed. And again, this class is going to have a hybrid synchronous, asynchronous model. We'll see what this looks like in the syllabus or the schedule. All right, quick description of this course. This course was designed really to develop critical thinking and writing skills, right? This is your senior capstone class. You're supposed to have a deeper understanding of current issues in the agricultural industry and beyond that, not just in California, but throughout the West, throughout most of the United States. We hope that you'll gain an appreciation for the diversity of perspectives and policies that impact society and agricultural issues on whole. And a lot of this content is centered on the research analysis of social, ecological, economic impacts of policy and regulation that are already a part of our food system. You can read through these course objectives on your own through the syllabus linked on Blackboard, but you've got a lot of objectives to cover in this course and a lot of content. This is going to be a very, very writing intensive class. We're addressing some of these student learning outcomes. Having a class like this is really asking, are you capable of communicating clearly and concisely? And we want you to have an international and domestic perspective of historical and current issues that apply to agriculture. We've already covered in the first part of this video the course materials. Really just need you to buy one book for this class. That's the Agricultural and Food Controversies book. I saw it on Amazon for about $8 for the ebook and about $16, $17 for the paperback. This will be a big part of this class. This policy section, we've got ADA compliance, academic honesty, attendance, and participation. But again, this all really boils down to respect yourself and respect each other. We'll also see that in this class, we'll have topic development and discussion-based works. We'll have quizzes. We'll have writing assignments, group presentations, and individual presentations. You can spend some time reading through these on your own, but we'll see right now where they fit into the schedule. Now, in the schedule itself, we've got a breakdown by week and by date. This first week is going to be 100% asynchronous. That means that this week is on you to keep up with and be a part of. Right now, we've gone through the Blackboard review. We've started on the syllabus. We're entering the schedule and talking about the expectations that we see in the schedule. And then we're going to eventually in this video talk about the ag awareness quiz and agricultural perceptions. This class will finally end with a writing assignment. Writing assignments are in green, due dates are in red, and if the class is asynchronous, that's blue and bolded, synchronous, purple, bolded, and underlined. Please be here for the asynchronous classes. We're going to jump right into how to use the APA format for essay writing starting February 2nd. And that'll be a synchronous class when we will meet on Zoom. The first few weeks of this class are really rooted in these writing assignments, right? We're going to do writing in a writing class. That's where that W comes from in the name. So be prepared for that. Some of these writing assignments, this first one's pretty easy, but they're going to get progressively difficult, all right? So it's going to take some time on your part, so be prepared. You'll see that you have until February 9th to get your agricultural and food controversies book, because this is when we see the first reading assignment. That's the pesticide controversy, starting in week 3. As a heads up, if you see a reading assignment in the syllabus, odds are very, very high that we will have a quiz in the next class. So make sure that you read these and pretend like there's a quiz due date in the next class period. We'll also go over some other forms of sharing these materials beyond just written forms. You'll see that we're going to watch a few brief videos and be prepared to discuss these as a class. Unbroken Ground is the first one. There's a really great video published last year, Sharing Butte Creek. That's a little bit later in the semester. I'm pretty fond of this one. And we'll also see that there's group work for presentations, individual and as group presentations throughout the semester. We've got final papers and the sort. So go through this on your own time as well. Make sure that you understand what's expected of you throughout the semester, but it's pretty well laid out. And if you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to email me. All right, class, so now we're going to transition to the next part of today, which is agriculture perspectives. Now, this particular work was conducted by Dave Daly. He's the farm manager at Chico State. If you don't get the chance to meet him, that's too bad. He's one of the nicest people in the world. Full credit to him for this presentation. Now, we're all here in AG482. This is the senior capstone course, Agricultural Issues. And this covers all agricultural disciplines, and it's meant to develop writing proficiency. Now, the course is, quote, to explore diverse points of view and identify potential solutions to challenging issues that are confronting agriculture. And this is a survey that was done by Dave Daly. It covers 8 semesters worth of students that went through this class. Right? These are all these years that came prior to the present. And the survey had over 450 respondents. It's a pretty big sample size of students that have taken this class previously at Chico State. And this survey work was done to explore paradigms. It's meant to ask, how do we view the world? What are the values and beliefs that we hold close? How are these values and beliefs formed? How are these paradigms formed? How are these paradigms, these ways of viewing the world, how do we form them, right? It asks, who is the greatest influencer of our own value systems? What is a value? Do these values evolve and change over time? And in this class, us as lecturers really have to evaluate the question of how do we teach students of these diverse value systems and encourage them to think critically, not just of each other, but of their own value system, right, of their own points of view. And these are ways of challenging our own paradigms, which is going to be crucial for this class. We'll find oftentimes that we're challenging our own, and sometimes, hopefully quite often, we find that our views are able to be amended oftentimes, right? Sometimes we reinforce our value system, our ways of thinking, when we critically evaluate them. So the survey that Dave developed posed these challenging, diametrical, opposed points of views, and it's forcing students to choose one of two viewpoints. And we'll go through each of these viewpoints throughout this presentation. With each of these contrasting viewpoints, students had to indicate their level of agreement with the statement. 1 being very lukewarm to the idea, and 5 being a strong agreement with that station, being, I am right and people who don't agree are wrong, right? So we'll probably find a lot of these are, hopefully with the students in this class, somewhere in between, which is I agree with this viewpoint that I'm aligning myself with, but I can see the other point of view. So let's get into the results. The first part of the survey tackled environmentally sensitive issues, right? This is 2 points. In general, farmers and ranchers are environmentally sensitive, or in general, farmers and ranchers are motivated exclusively by profit. Now remember, students had to choose one of these 2 options. There was no in between. So about 70% of the students align themselves with the statement that in general, farmers and ranchers are environmentally sensitive, with an average agreement of 3.3. If we look back, that's again, I agree, but I can see the other point of view. Now that means the remaining 29% of these students said, in general, farmers and ranchers are motivated exclusively by profit, with an average agreement of 2.7. Environmentalism. Students were asked, I consider myself an environmentalist, or I consider myself counter to environmental teaching. On average, we saw that 80% of the students considered themselves as environmentalists with an average agreement of 2.9, and 20% consider themselves counter to environmental teachings with an average agreement of 2.2. 2.2, of course, getting closer to the very lukewarm to the idea, but somewhere in between that and being able to see the other point of view. Technology, all right. So students were offered the opportunity to select technology and science is our only opportunity to feed the world's growing population, or technology and science are the primary cause of the world's deteriorating environment. 88% of the students saw that thought that technology and science is our only opportunity to feed the world's growing population, while 12% were contrary to that point. Low input sustainable agriculture is the only opportunity to protect our environment, or low input sustainable agriculture will result in more hunger and more starvation. We saw about 2/3 of the students aligned with the low input sustainable agriculture is the only opportunity to protect our environment statement. And they both have a similar average agreement, 2.8. That's agreeing, but seeing the other point of view. Growing food should take precedence over endangered species, or endangered species are more important than farming enterprises. And I have to admit, this one surprised me. This was a really interesting result. You see about 2/3 of the students that took this survey aligned with the idea of growing food should take precedence over endangered species. The US has a very safe food supply, or our food supply is not safe due to the influence of big business. There are the results of that. Intensive agriculture. Animals grown in intensive agriculture, it's poultry, swine, and so forth, are not treated humanely. Or animals grown in intensive agricultural systems are treated humanely. Quite the difference in views for the students, right? the move to corporate agriculture will result in cheaper, safer food for the consumer, or the move to corporate agriculture will result in unsafe, unhealthy food supply. This was split pretty well down the middle. There's an interesting finding, and both of these groups of students agreed with their statements, but seemed to very easily see the other point of view. Genetically engineered or modified organisms is an important step to feeding the world, and the contrasting point is genetic engineering or biotechnology is a potential environmental disaster or a societal disaster. Most of the students in this class thought that GMO tools and technologies and products were an important step to feeding the world. One of the parts of this particular slide that I really, really like is the inclusion of wheat in this picture. The United States doesn't grow any GMO wheat. It's a interesting take, very, very different to the corn-soybean route, which is very, very heavily GMO. Zero GMO wheat, right? So that goes more directly to feeding people than corn and soybean. But there's a lot of work in wheat anyway, going towards that GMO technology right now. Private land. Society has a right to determine management of private lands, specifically to protect the environment, or private property is a constitutional right, and society should not be able to determine how private lands are managed. It was interesting that this is 3.8 is a not kind of in between the being able to see the other side but agreeing with the statement and very strongly agreeing with that statement, almost not interested in seeing the other side. So it's a interesting result. Animal protein. For health and environmental reasons, society should not eat animal protein, or for nutrition and developmental reasons, society should eat animal proteins. Quite the breakdown here. 96% of students think that humans should eat animal proteins, with a very high agreement, and 4% fell in the other category. The future of agriculture. And this is, from my point of view, one of the more interesting questions to ask. All right, I am optimistic about the future of agriculture in California, or I am pessimistic about the future of agriculture in California. And this outcome is a very good one for a teacher to see, and a really good one for California's agriculture to see as well. So with this, the goal is really just to show what some of these perceptions are of students that came before you in this very class. Look at all these points of views, these ways that we ourselves will differ in our paradigms, our ways of viewing things in this class. So, you know, in this class, you might find that, for instance, you find yourself in this animal protein category of for nutrition and developmental reasons, society should eat animal protein, and you very strongly agree. Perhaps there's somebody in the class that falls in the other category and also very strongly agrees with their point of view, right? The goal isn't so much to have these issues be points that we can't move past, right? They need to have discussions. We need to have productive discussions in this class. We need to be respectful when we go through these discussions. So keep that in mind as we progress. Take your time, look back through this slide. If you want to learn a little bit about what your classmates might view as some of these agricultural issues and where they might land on this spectrum of issues, right? We're presenting this as two contrasting points of view, but we see with this average agreement rating, you know, it's really more of a spectrum at the end of the day, right? Okay, now the next part of class that we're going to get into are perceptions and paradigms. Now, as a heads up, before we go too far into this presentation, I just want to apologize in advance for the animations that are on here. It's a lot. Okay. Anyway, let's get on with it. So the objectives of today's class are to define paradigms, to identify relationships between paradigms and perceptions. It's to identify paradigm shifts. Now, this is a really important term that we'll get into later. We need to examine paradigms in agriculture and paradigm shifts in agriculture, and describe issue development. Now, a paradigm can be perceived, it's thought of as a model, right? It's a theory, a perception, and assumption, right? Simply put, it's the way that we see the world. It's the way that we view it, the way that we perceive, understand, and interpret what's going on around us, what's happening in these models and these systems. And it's worth noting that you can see at the bottom right corner of the screen, Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is a book that I read for my senior capstone class back at Michigan State. You know, a lot of this book is really geared towards business situations, but a lot of these concepts can be applied beyond that. So what we'll see in a lot of this presentation is referencing Covey's work, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. All right, and again, I apologize for the animations. Now, paradigms, we can see these as maps. There are many maps in our head. It's the way things are, or perhaps the way things should be, our values. And we interpret everything that we experience through these mental maps, right? That's how we, again, make sense of things. Now, with the paradigms, we seldom question their accuracy. These are maps that are nested into our system. This is kind of oftentimes built into our way of thinking, our framework. And we're usually unaware that we even have these inherent paradigms. Simply assume the way we see things is the way that they really are or should be. That's how the paradigm system operates. We just say, look, we've always done it this way. That's a paradigm. We're locked in that model. Now, paradigms are powerful conditionings that affect our perceptions. They affect our paradigms, our way of interacting with others and viewing the world. Paradigms are the source of our attitudes and our behaviors. Again, this is us. This is what makes us. This is how we view specific situations or specific issues. And paradigms truly affect the way that we interact with others, right? And makes sense. And it creates that interaction between us and others that happens the way that it does. Now, we tend to think that we see things as they are, that we are objective, right? That things fall within our paradigm makes us objective. But in fact, we see the world not as it is, but as we are, or as we are conditioned to see it through our paradigms, our views of the world. When we open our mouths to describe what we see, we are in effect describing ourselves, our perceptions, and our paradigms, right? We describe us. Whoa, that's an animation. We are more aware that we are of our basic paradigms and the extent to which we have been influenced by our experiences. The more that we can take responsibility for those paradigms, examine those paradigms, test those paradigms against reality and the paradigms of others, and listen to others and be open to others' perceptions. The more that we can be able to see a bigger picture to enlarge our realm of thinking. We can be more objective. It's hard to be truly objective. We can work towards objectivity. And we can better understand where others are coming from. We can interact with people differently. We can better understand other ways of seeing, other ways of doing and being. Now, the next part of this is that paradigm shift that we alluded to earlier. This is that aha moment. This is when we see things differently in a new light. Some significant examples: the center of the universe, right? Is it Earth? No, probably not. Ptolemy, right, took it as the view that we are, right, the center. Germ theory, this is bad air, right? The idea that diseases and illnesses come purely from breathing, quote, bad air. We know that there are, in fact, really deeper issues going on, right? This can be questioning the central dogma of molecular biology, right? This is questioning that central dogma of molecular biology is what led to really early research into what amounts to being the way that HIV/AIDS medicine is given to people, right? It all came from this basic work that happened before the AIDS pandemic, where people question that central dogma of molecular biology, right? That transfer, that pattern of moving from DNA to a protein, right? That viral work. And these paradigm shifts, you know, they generally have profound impacts on the world, right? If we want to make a significant change, we need to work on our basic paradigms. We need to question ourselves, our framework, our way of viewing. We need to ask, how is agriculture changing, right? That could be the farm models of the 90s versus the 19th century versus today. With agriculture, we can look at these paradigm shifts as being an older form. Perhaps we say agriculture is an art form. And maybe a newer model is agriculture is primarily science or R&D based or some hybrid of art and science. An older model might mean looking at it from agriculture is made up of family farms and small businesses. Whereas a newer model is that agriculture is kind of consolidated and now it's made up of large scale or often industrialized interests. And the family farm still exists, but that shift has already begun, right? Agriculture is synonymous with farming and the production of commodity versus agriculture is responsible for manufacturing food products. Those terms are very specifically chosen in this example. And it represents the entire food production distribution system. In terms of markets and commodities, we can say that impersonal markets are open to all versus markets are personal, negotiated, and exclusive. Farmers have an adversarial relationship with suppliers and purchasers versus farmers form partnerships with suppliers and purchasers. New technologies are prized versus new ways of doing business are prized. Domestic markets are a farmer's prime market versus foreign and industrial markets are critical for farmers now, right? This marketing beyond just these domestic boundaries of the states. Market prices bring risk versus relationships are risky. Now, we can talk about some of these paradigm shifts that have happened with some really strong external forces that have been brought up through things like book clubs or really strong literature-based groups. Consumers believe their food is safe. Is a kind of on again, off again paradigm. One of the really big parts of the early 20th century, and from an agricultural perspective, was Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, which really brought about these congressional shifts, this US government's questioning even of saying, wait a minute, a lot of this food isn't safe. You could think about Slaughterhouse-Five, right? The public trusts and beliefs in farmers as stewards of resources. This is another one that was really, really questioned on a farmer and more so on a corporate level by Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, right? And this is a book that was read by book clubs throughout the country. This was a huge book. And the public said, wait a minute, maybe farmers or farm-based corporations are not as don't have as much of an environmentally focused attitude as we thought, right? And this has propelled us to our current situation today, right? All of these have. These are huge paradigm shifts. This is where we went from one frame of thinking to another. Now, governmental involvement in agriculture as a paradigm shift, right? We talk about the federal budget. It has adequate funds to support agriculture. Now, if you've been following that, you know that that's not quite as strong of a financial support as it used to be. Perhaps a newer model, as of 1996 anyway, is that federal and state budgets are in deficit, which leaves less funding for agriculture. Farmers have significant political influence, whereas perhaps throughout most of the country, that political influence has become less and less so over the past century. Private property rights are sacred versus society is reserving more property rights for the public. The USDA is the most important governmental agency for farmers. And this was again written in 1996, but perhaps a newer model looks more at the EPA or other parts of the governmental agencies. Farmers use and exploit resources to maintain or increase productivity. Versus farmers protect resources and practice environmentally sound use of resources to reduce pollution. Efficiency versus preserving the environment, preserving systems. Technical skills and core competencies are critical for the success of agriculture versus communication and personal skills being this huge portion of that, right? It's critical to success. Tradition and remembering are important versus new ideas are important. Perhaps going into that paradigm shift way of thinking. Producing staples like corn, soybean, beef. I don't know why that's plural. Versus farmers produce niche products such as white corn or tofu soybean or edamame or very lean pork. Money, finances, and assets are the source of an agribusiness's power and control versus information, as we've seen even more so recently, is the primary source of an agribusiness's power and control. And a lot of these concepts extend beyond agriculture, right? Labor as an expense versus an investment or labor. So when we talk about these perceptions and these ways of viewing, it takes some really strong depth perception, right? We need to look beyond the present, look into the future. It doesn't work when you're not looking, right? If you're not questioning your own beliefs, your own values, you're not going to get too far, right? You're going to get hit by a tennis ball. What do you see? All right, one of those classic blue dress, gold dress pictures. All right, the last part of today's lecture. Now, the last part is, of course, the writing assignment. That was what was laid out in your syllabus in green bolded font. This is your writing assignment number 1. Now, in this writing assignment, it's a pretty easy one, okay? Why don't you provide an overview of who you are, what your background is, what your experiences are in agriculture, and how that may or may not have influenced your choice to study agriculture right now. Do you feel that these experiences and relationships have shaped your perspectives about production agriculture and our food, our fuel, feed, and fiber system? So with this assignment, got a couple of things that need to be on here. One, put this in a docx file, Microsoft document, right? Microsoft Word. I need to see your name, class, and section. Ideally, those will be in the top left-hand corner. Your writing needs to be double-spaced, 1-inch margins, 1-page length. That's it. You know, if you go to about 3/4 of a page, that's fine. Say 3/4 of a page or a page and a half. How does that work? Good. That's all we have for today's class. Don't hesitate to email me. This is our first class, and it is a asynchronous, right, class. We're not doing that together. This is something that you're watching. I've pre-recorded. So if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. This assignment is due Thursday for that Thursday class, which will also be held asynchronously. So have that done. There's a turn it in file on Blackboard. Submit it there if you have any issues. You can email me, reach out. Heck, you can even attach it in an email, but it's going through that online turn it in system anyway. So thank you so much for being a part of the class this year. I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And I think we're going to learn a lot, right? This is going to be a really good class that's based on learning from each other, based on learning from what's in the literature, what we already know, questioning our own paradigms, and doing a lot of writing along the way. So this 1-page length assignment is going to be a really nice assignment when we look back a month and a half from now. So thank you so much for being part of class today. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.